Welcome to this week's podcast. I'm Michelle Pascoe, and thank you so much for joining me. Each week, I either interview an amazing guest, or perhaps I'm sharing my own insights over the past 3 decades in this amazing industry, as well as being in business. This podcast is for those in the hospitality industry, but it's also so much more than that. It's for someone just like you. Perhaps you're an individual building a business, or you're just starting out building a team, or you have many people that you lead and manage. If that is so, and you are wanting to create an amazing experience for your patrons, your clients, your members, then this is the podcast for you. Today, I have the honor and privilege of interviewing a gentleman that I have known about for over 2 decades now through the National Speakers Association in America. Shep Hyken is a customer service and experience expert, researcher, and a New York Times and Wall Street Journal best-selling author. Shep works with companies and organizations that want to build loyal relationships with their customers and employees. His articles have been read in hundreds of publications, and he's the author of 8 books, including his latest, I'll Be Back, How to Get Customers to Come Back Again and Again. He is also the creator of the Customer Focus, a customer service training program that helps clients develop a customer service culture and loyalty mindset. And as you know, my wonderful listeners, customer service and that experience is my passion. So Shep and I are going to have a wonderful conversation. So thank you so much for joining me. I really appreciate it.
Great to be here. Thanks for having me. All the way, we're covering multiple time zones,
yes.
multiple hemispheres. This is amazing. We couldn't have done this like 25 years ago. I would have had to fly to see you, or you see me, and here we are today. It's as easy as making a phone call.
It is. And
but better.
It is. And it just feels like you're just around the corner. So, Shep, you've been in this business for a long time, but what was that catalyst that really got you thinking, you know what? I think I want to put my whole life purpose is going to be about customer service and that experience.
Well, I had no idea. As a child growing up, my parents taught me the basics of customer service. I had my own business at age 12. It was a birthday party magic show business.
Wow.
Where I would entertain little screaming kids and get paid, I thought, pretty well. I think my first magic show, it was $15 plus $1 tip, and that was a long time ago.
Yes.
So today that's worth about $2,412. But
I
digress. Seriously, I came home and my mom said to me, you need to write a thank you note to these people that just paid you that unreasonable amount of money. And my dad said, that's a great idea, but take it another level. Call the parents next week, thank them again. By that time, they will have received the note, and then ask them, how did you like the show?
Yeah.
And find out specifically, like, what was your favorite tricks, or what were your favorite tricks? And they'll tell you. And as you do this, you'll realize sometimes they don't talk about certain tricks, and whatever tricks aren't being talked about, get rid of them.
Right.
And then replace them with tricks they will talk about, and your show will get better. Now, I was learning about customer appreciation, getting feedback, operational improvement or process improvement based on the feedback. So operationalizing the feedback. Now, that's not what they called it back then, but that's what it was. And you know what's amazing? At age 12, doing a birthday party magic show business, if I don't tell my clients that it was about a birthday party and I tell them this is what you need to do, they go, yeah, we need to do that.
We need to do that. It's amazing, isn't it? And it's just what you and I take as common sense. But businesses still don't, do they? They sell them a product, or they provide them a service, and then they just let them flitter away to find somebody else. So how can we bring this into everyday businesses? As lovely as it would be to show them a trick, it's what is that difference between service and that experience?
Sure. Well, if you want to talk about the true definition of service and experience, there was a point in time where experience was a fancy word for service. Somebody said, let's call it customer experience instead of customer service. And then somebody smarter said, by the way, that was a very smart person to begin with to make it sexier sounding. And they said, The experience is really everything from the very beginning of the journey to the end and everything in between, even parts of the experience where the customer may not realize they're being impacted. That's part of what drives the experience. So there's a lot that goes into customer experience.
Mm.
But I've lost sight of what the original question was, but I know what it had something to do with the difference between service and experience.
Yes, yes. So what is that difference? Because, as
Oh,
you said, it was that sexy word. And I think
right.
for some people, they thought, well, that's what it was. It was the same thing, but it was just making it sound sexy. Mm.
And it still is to a degree, because when I work a lot with contact centers, and the person who's in charge is like the director of CX, customer experience.
Right.
And, again, customer experience, you could take it all the way to the IT department that's, putting in the technology to analyze the data, and then having a chief experience officer who's more interested in analyzing data and watching trends and fixing bigger problems than dealing on the micro level, which is interacting directly with customers.
Mm.
So, there's different ways to describe what customer experience is, and we need to keep that in mind. But at the end of it all, let's just summarize it by saying everything we're doing is to make a better experience for the customer. And while that happens, we're creating a better company, more profitable, more, I guess for lack of a term, more connected to not just customers, but even the community. So we can look at that word experience, and we could just say it's bigger than everything, and we really need to be focusing on it.
Yes.
When clients ask me, what can we do? Like, what 3 things can we do to try to become more customer focused and create that experience that we want to do? I go, number one, make it a part of the culture. And it starts
Mm.
at the top. And we can dig deeper into this. Number two is everybody needs to recognize they play a part in the experience, even if they're really deep, deep, deep behind the scenes and never,
Mm.
ever interact with a customer. Something they're doing is going to impact a process or support somebody that does. And the third thing is to recognize, and I thought you were going here, but the concept of customer loyalty is interesting.
Mm.
You mentioned my book, I'll Be Back, How to Get Customers to Come Back Again and Again. And if you said it, you almost said it like that, Australian or Austrian accent, not Australian, but I would be back, from the Arnold Schwarzenegger who made it famous. But that's not why I used that title. I didn't even think about it until about 3 sentences into my outline. But loyalty is not about a lifetime, but
Mm.
it turns out to be a lifetime if you
Yes.
manage the next time
Mm.
every time.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
that's a big thing to think about. What am I doing
Mm.
right now to make sure that customer wants to do business with me the next time they need whatever it is that we sell?
Mm. I love that point because, I've had some clients, as I'm sure you have, Shep, that have been with you for decades. And if we just rolled up, doing the same thing every time, they'd be nice. They'd give us a coffee, they'd have a chat, but would they use us? But we come to them, we listen to them, and we create something for them, and they go, yes, that's why I'm loyal to you. And that's what
Yes.
businesses have to realize, isn't it? People aren't just going to stick with you just because you did something really good, perhaps last week, last month, or 10 years ago. Mm.
It's consistency and predictability.
Yeah.
I talk about creating customer amazement, and it's not about being over the top and blowing people away with the most incredible experience they've ever
Mm.
had. That happens when problems fall into your lap or certain situations happen that you can take
Mm.
advantage of. But you can't count on that every single interaction. But
Mm.
what you can do is make sure you deliver what's expected, or just bump it up ever so slightly. So Horst Schultz, who's the first president and co-founder of the Ritz-Carlton Hotel Group, we had this conversation about the idea of being better than average. And I said, you have this iconic brand known throughout the world for being amazing. What is the secret? And he says, a little better than average. I go, how much better? And he goes, man, maybe 10% better. I go,
Yes.
really? I mean, you hear all these stories, but he goes, those stories are isolated incidents.
Mm.
Day in and day out, we have to achieve this, reputation that we're going after. And the way to do it is to recognize opportunities like using the guest's name in the right place.
Yeah.
That bumps it up just a little bit.
Mm.
Really, that's all it takes. Well, think about it. You get out of the car, and whoever is working the door looks at your luggage tag, and let's say I'm the passenger. Are you Mr. Hyken? Yeah. Well, welcome to the Ritz. Come on in. And I walk in, and as we're walking the gentleman or woman, whoever it is helping me out, says to the person at the front desk, this is Mr. Hyken. He's here to check in. Half an hour later, I'm walking through the lobby, and maybe that person at the front desk says, Mr. Hyken, how's your room? They're just using my name.
Yes.
Can you tell me where the restroom is? Let me show you. Not let me go over there, make a right, another left. You'll see it on the right. No, it's let me show you. Now, they're not going to go into the restroom with me. No. That would be a very interesting version of customer experience. But they bump up the experience just a little bit. And, I love it. I love it. I'll tell you, it was a great experience, but there was something negative that made it great. And that was, I went into my room and there were some dirty towels on it's not a big deal. I know, I see that face. It wasn't that. They were just dirty towels that were in the corner of the bathroom. And so I just, I can't remember if I wrote a note or maybe, I know, on the way out, I said to the housekeeper that was like working another room, I said, hey, there's some dirty towels still on the floor of my bathroom, I guess left over. Everything else looks great. Oh my gosh, she felt so bad. She was so apologetic. And I said, just take care of the dirty towels. And they went in and made sure the room was clean. And that night, there was a small note and a box with 2 little pieces of chocolate. I'm going to guess they cost about 80 cents total. It wasn't like a big fancy candy bar or a box of truffles or a bottle of wine. No, 2 small little pieces of chocolate that said, thank you for letting me know about the problem. And I'm glad we're here to serve you. Let us know if there's anything else. And I thought, wow. That, what did that cost? And you know what? Forget about the chocolate even. The handwritten note was the key. So very, very powerful to think about managing the experience. And a friend of mine, Tom Baldwin, who's the former CEO of Benihana's, the steak, the hibachi steakhouse. And he's the former CEO of Morton's, the steakhouse.
Oh, I love that.
His definition of customer service is mistakes handled well. Now, I think that's a good part of a definition, but boy, if you start there, you can't go wrong, right?
No. Yeah. And it's so important. It's acknowledging that mistake and then fixing it. And then, that little note, it can make such a difference. And I've had, things like that. I think, we both do when we're traveling so much. There are things that happen in hotels or even, conference centers. And it's just that connection with somebody that you feel they've been able to write that without making a big fuss, and they appreciate it. Because how often would those wonderful employees be approached by a very upset guest and really, go over the top, and they think, well, how am I going to handle this? So when I look at that customer experience, it's also that internal experience as well, isn't it, Shep? How do we get our teams to understand the importance, but also that connection of support within their teams about how do we create that inner circle?
Sure. Well, I mentioned culture earlier in our conversation, so I'm going to deep dive into this customer-focused culture and give you the 6 steps to creating it. I also want to share with you something that a gentleman named Jan Carlson. Actually, let's start there. Jan Carlson was the president of Scandinavian Airlines like decades ago. And when he was brought in to run the airline, it was losing millions of dollars. And he went to every city they had a presence, brought in all the employees into airplane hangars in each city. And he talked about managing the moment of truth, which is anytime a passenger, and for us, it could be a customer, a client, a guest, a member, a resident, a patient, whatever it is. Even if you're a government, it's your citizens. But anytime, in his case, a passenger comes into contact with the airline, they form an impression. He said that impression is good or bad. We need to make them good. And he went on to explain that if a typical journey, no pun intended, of the passenger is they may see some marketing and advertising, which makes them think that they might want to contact Scandinavian Airlines to book their trip. But outside of that, people to people, they make a call, the reservations. Back then, there was no internet. There was no online booking. All right. Number 2, they on the day of departure, they check their bags, maybe at the curb. They go inside of the ticket counter and check in. They go to the gate and they're taken care of by the gate agent, the flight attendant on the flight. They're greeted at the destination, and the bags are at the carousel when they land, right? And they at the end of their trip. All of these are main moments of truth, and there might be some little interactions along the way. If they're all handled well, why wouldn't a passenger want to fly on us again? So
Mm.
it's everybody's responsibility to manage those moments of truth. But then he
Mm.
went on to say, if you're not dealing directly with a passenger, you're supporting somebody that is, or you're part of
Yes.
the process that is.
Mm.
Okay, that's really cool. So I came up with my addition to his story, which was, for example, when you check your bags at the curb and it goes down the baggage, you see it go down that conveyor belt. There's people in the baggage claim area down below the airport who are not baggage claim area, they're baggage handlers. They
Mm.
never see the passengers. They
No.
never interact with them, they never look at them eye to eye. Yet there's probably a dozen people that touch my bag to get it on the cart, to get it out
Mm.
to the airplane, to get it on the airplane, to get it off the airplane, and eventually get it to the baggage carousel. If any one of those people fail, my bag's not on that baggage carousel. And then what happens? They've
Mm.
actually failed two customers. They
Mm.
failed me as a passenger, and the other customer is internal. And
Mm.
that is the poor soul that sits behind the counter at the baggage claim office that nobody ever goes into that office. You get your bag, you don't walk in and go, hey, I got it. You guys are awesome. No, they only go in there to complain, you lost my luggage. So that person behind the scenes who's handling the bags, who fails to get my bag on the plane or get it taken off the plane, they fail both of us. And
Mm.
then it's my job as a passenger to have to go in, complain, fill out the paperwork, it's just inconvenienced
Mm.
by not having my luggage. What does that mean? Am I going to get it tonight? Am I going to get it tomorrow? Where is it? You know,
Yes.
so anyway, that's kind of a cool story. But let's go to the 6 steps to
Mm.
create that customer focused culture. Number one is you have to define what you want it to be. And oftentimes it's already in a vision or value statement that the company has. So what is the customer experience vision? One sentence is what I'm looking for. So
Mm.
summarize whatever you have into one sentence. Ritz-Carlton, 9 words long. We're
Mm.
ladies and gentlemen serving ladies and gentlemen.
Wow.
Pretty obvious. You come to work
Yes.
at the Ritz, you learn that, and
Mm.
then you deliver. And by the way, they'll probably have to change this in our new woke society that says what
Yeah.
we're them serving them. I don't know. But anyway,
Yeah.
I digress. And I joke about that, but it is actually a pretty serious
Mm.
issue happening today. We need to be very aware of how sensitive people are to the labels that
Yes.
they have been given or want to be given. So
Mm.
anyway, I digress. So we define that vision. I call it a mantra, one sentence. And once it's defined by the leadership, it is communicated. That's step 2 to
Mm.
everybody. And it's communicated again and again. Step 3 is training. Everybody has to be trained. The
Mm.
baggage handler that never sees the passenger needs to learn what they are, how effective and how important they are to
Mm.
the process. The guy in the warehouse that packs up merchandise to ship to a customer needs to know that if they put it in the box the wrong way and it breaks, that customer's not happy, and they were
Mm.
the ones responsible. Yet again, they never
Yes.
see the customer. So
Mm.
everybody gets to be trained at a certain level. Frontliners differently than others, of course. All right, so that's step 3. Step 4 is that leaders, managers, supervisors, anybody that has people reporting to them must be the role models for
Yes.
everything. So
Mm.
you can't say one thing and then go act a different way.
Mm.
Step 5 is to defend the culture. I once interviewed somebody that had a pretty large retail organization. And I said, so you sit here in this office all day, you have lots of people, tens of thousands of people working for you. What is it that you do? What's your
Mm.
most important job? He goes, I defend the culture of the
Wow.
company. This is what we want to
Mm.
be known for. If I see a store, a group of stores, an area going out of alignment with what we want to
Mm.
do, it's my job to step in and make sure that we get back into alignment. Anyway,
Mm.
so the step 5 is to defend the culture, and step 6 is celebrate it when it works. If it's
Yes.
working, tell people it's working and tell them why it's working and applaud them for the great job that they're doing.
Mm. If I can just tease out a couple of things there, that domino effect of that baggage handler doesn't see the actual, the person who owns that luggage. In the hospitality industry, I believe it's the same thing. You've got a chef, you've got beautiful produce, you've got a well laid out menu, and everybody thinks it's fantastic. It comes to the table, you're looking at it, chef, you think, oh, this is amazing. And you pick up the fork, and there's yesterday's egg yolk stuck between the
Oh,
prongs of the fork.
so that's such an important, the
Yes. So
dishwasher.
cleaner.
Okay.
Yes.
It doesn't matter how good the food at that Michelin rated restaurant
That's
is. If it
right.
comes out on a dirty plate, it's going back.
That's right, exactly.
Yeah.
So many people look at those tasks as menial or demeaning, but it is the key point. It's just like having a clean restroom. You can have a beautiful place, but if the restroom's dirty, and hey, us girls, we are the fussiest, but we're also the dirtiest. I don't know if you've ever been to a ladies' restroom, but oh, it's appalling. But if those restrooms aren't clean, they'll come out and say to their partner or their group, we're not eating here, or we're not going to stay here, and they'll go elsewhere. So that is that one key area. That other is, as you were saying, that defending that brand, because so often we can have one experience at a chain restaurant or a chain store or even a chain, motor dealership. And if we have one poor experience, that impacts everybody else's brand around the country. Could even
Yeah.
be around the
And
world,
I'll go a
couldn't it?
step further. I
Mm,
have a concept that I share in many of my speeches, which is what I refer to as the awesome responsibility. And what
mm,
that does is it puts each and every employee that is individually interacting with the customer, it
mm.
puts them in, I sometimes jokingly call it, and other people have said, it's like you're the CEO of the moment. At that moment,
Yeah.
because if I'm interacting with an employee, that employee represents every other employee and
Mm,
the entire brand. Because if I walk away happy, this is what I say. I love doing business with them. They're so friendly. They're so
yes.
helpful. And it wasn't a they, it was a person, an
Mm,
individual. And
yes.
so, but that individual represented everyone. And the story I love to share with that is when I took my kids when they were really little to McDonald's every week for breakfast. And
Mm.
one week, a lady remembered us. I remembered her, and she was there the week before, and I didn't realize it was her first day working at McDonald's. We were her first customers
Oh,
that she didn't need any help because the supervisor said, "You're on your own." So she really remembered us. And when she said to my kids, "Hey kids, welcome back. I know what you're going to order for breakfast," and my kids were like, "How does she know?" And on
yes.
the way out, my daughter says, "Boy, the people at this McDonald's are great." It
Yeah.
wasn't the people; it was the person.
Yes.
And,
Yes.
and yet
Yeah.
we saw people, yet that one person represented everybody in the entire restaurant, the entire brand.
Yeah. And even to a child, how that stood out. And I
Yeah.
think,
Now, by the way, my son, 6 months later, how does this person know what we're going to order? And my daughter,
oh,
like after the first time, said, I think it's the same person, which proves then my son was 9, my daughter was 6, but it proves that the male brain does not mature quite as fast as the female brain. But that's for another topic, another day.
But it's so interesting, isn't it? That one person just remembering that one simple thing that you were her first customers. And I'm sure she's told the story probably 1,000 times as well, Shep, saying, oh my goodness, my first customers were this delightful family and the impact it had on her. And that's what that customer experience is about, isn't it? We think as servers, not servants, that we are, serving people and we're giving them that amazing experience. But what about the other way? What does it do for us? What does it do for the server, do you think, when they have that experience?
When there's no doubt that the form of appreciation can come many ways. It could be
Mm,
with smiles and an enthusiastic thank you and a goodbye. It
mm,
could be, if you're a server, it could be the result of a bigger tip, you
mm.
know. But here's the thing. I think everybody deserves to be treated the right way. I just wrote an article that's going to be coming out rather soon. And do you remember the movie Pretty Woman?
Yes.
Okay. Do you remember when Julia Roberts, who is, a prostitute, was
Mm,
dressed like a prostitute? She's walking down Rodeo Drive with a bunch of money or credit cards in her purse
yes.
that Richard Gere had said,
Mm,
go and buy yourself a nice dress because we're going out fancy tonight. And she kept walking into these places and
mm.
they wouldn't treat her well because of the way she looked.
Yes.
And then she found somebody that, or somehow she got to a store where they did treat her well, and there's a whole story behind it. I don't need to get into it, but she was walking by the store that turned her down, and she had all these shopping bags from all these expensive stores, and she looked at the person, she said, "Big mistake,"
Yes.
and walked away. So, but the point is, my friend Norman Beck here in the US sent me an article that's an old article about a woman that went in to buy a $25,000 chess set at
Mm,
a fairly well-known luxury store. And the person working there, the salesperson, refused to take it out and show it to her because she looked like she could afford it. She kind of looked like, disheveled, unkept. And she said, okay. And on the way out, she stopped by the owner's office, explained what had happened, and said, I want to buy that chess set. I've got the money and I would like to buy it. And she knew the owner. It's a friend. And she goes, but I will buy it on one condition. That salesperson doesn't earn the commission.
Wow.
Okay.
Gosh.
So she walked out, and once again, big mistake.
Yes.
And we make sometimes assumptions on just by the way people look. And we need to be very careful because some of these people could be the nicest people in the world and be the best customers we ever have. And you just don't realize it until after the first or second time. And you treated them right, which is why they keep coming back.
Yes. And telling others. I think that's that big thing.
Yes.
They come back, but they tell others. And, we may only have a small sale with that particular customer, but they'll come back and they'll bring their friends and they'll tell others. So we look at that maybe $10 or $20 or $100 spend, but that could over time be thousands, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, all because we just serve somebody in a lovely, welcoming way instead of being judgmental. And too often we see that, which just damages that whole service and that whole experience, because people will go elsewhere. They'll travel further. They'll even go online now because they don't even want to react with people. So times are changing, and I'd love to have this quick chat with you about AI, because we're looking now at robots that are coming in, the handling luggage at front desks, the bringing meals, they're doing all sorts of things. And AI and technology and robotics have been around for decades. It's just now I think all of a sudden the world's gone, oh my goodness. How do you think that is going to impact on the actual customer experience?
Well, I personally think done right, it's going to impact it very, very well and very positively. Yeah, every year we do our annual customer experience research, and it's a consumer-based research where I take the U.S. Census for age, geography, ethnicity, gender, et cetera, to get a really good base of what the population is and what they're thinking about. By the way, these numbers don't change much from, modern country to modern country. Obviously, they're going to be different in lesser economically developed countries and places. But for the most part, people are thinking the same thing. And by the way, when I'm in Australia talking to an audience, I will talk to different people before the speech to say, hey, tell me, do you know who this company is? Oh, yeah. How do you know? Oh, well, they're starting to make their presence felt here in Australia, but we watch TV. We watch American TV. We know who they are. And I find that's like some of the best examples of good and bad customer service are just learn through what we see on TV. Anyway, AI. The cool thing about AI is done right, it creates the most incredible experience that allows a customer to interact with a company technologically and get what they want easily, quickly. And by the way, if you look at Amazon, who perhaps is one of the more digital, technical, self-service focused companies in the whole world, they seem to do it right. Somehow or another, they've created this incredible loyalty, and yet nobody ever talks to a person. But that's not most companies. Most companies, if they want to do this right, should put a solution in place that gives the customer what they think they'll need. And then if it's not giving them what they need, recognize the problem and seamlessly transfer them off. And if you're doing a chat bot, which means you're typing with a robot, and the robot's smart enough to say, I can tell by the responses, I'm going to send this over to a human being. And it says, I'm going to let you talk to one of our agents, and sends it over. And the agent doesn't say, well, let's start over. The agent says, oh, I see you're calling, or you've been in communicating with us about whatever the topic is.
Yes.
And then they start to handle the more complicated topics. I have been interviewing with some of the most incredible companies on the planet. I just did a great interview with eBay today.
Wow.
And I did an interview with Verizon, who's one of the larger carriers over here in the US and internationally as well, with their top, with their EVPs of global service, marketing, et cetera. And what I'm hearing is the same thing from all of these great brands. We're trying to create a solution that makes it easy for the customer to get to, number one, and get their answers that they want. Or if they need to, talk to a person easily. If that's the man. And it's not just being transferred, if that's the method they choose to use. Now, our research says that most customers, 70%, would prefer to go to the phone before a digital experience. Of that 70%, a big majority of them are baby boomers, the older generation that are used to wanting to use a phone. But the reason, what I think is ironic is, where do you go to get the phone number? You go to the website. So you're already using the digital experience before you have even made the phone call. But why can't we keep you on there? Because we haven't made it easy enough and clear enough that that answer that you're looking for might be available at that moment, right? In that place that you're at. The other interesting thing is 26% of customers said, if you don't offer me a digital solution at all, I'm probably going to go find a company that does. So I think it's important today for companies to use AI. Another thing that's important is that 5 years ago, AI was really expensive. 3 years ago, it was expensive. Today, it's like so inexpensive. How can you not do it? And whether you're a tiny company or a huge company, if the bigger you are, the more complicated it gets. Yes, it's expensive, but still it's scaled out based on your employees and your sales. It's really minimal.
You've definitely got to have that combination of both AI and people, because I pull that face because it drives me nuts when you go, I just want to speak to a person, and you
representative,
go onto the website.
Agent, you're screaming into the phone and
there's no phone number, and then you got to go into a chat bot, and you feel like just give me a human. And that's where there needs to be that seamless moment, as you said, Shep, that goes from, all right, but AI is now passing it over to a human. The human reads quickly through the notes and can start a conversation, instead of, if we think back before we're using AI and chatbots, you bring up the phone, press 1 for this and 2 for that and 4 for this, and then you'd get to that. And then it would say, and you'd literally go through 4 or 5 different steps till you finally got onto somebody and you were frustrated.
Yes. It drives me crazy. There's great opportunity to do it right, and it's not expensive to do it right. And why do you want to frustrate the customer? Our research also indicates that one of the top desires of a customer when doing business is to know that they can easily reach a person if they want to. That's important to them. How quickly and easily. I know it turns people off. They hate long hold times. They hate being transferred from. They also find that they'll leave messages and hoping to get a response. And I had this one client, very, very large worldwide client, that was getting ready to invest millions and millions into social media customer support, which I've always been a fan of, because there is a small percentage of customers that will go to social media and ask for help. And it's not like they're screaming and yelling for help. They're just asking for it. However, this client said to me, well, we see more and more of our customers going there, and they're asking for help, and we need to deal with this because it doesn't make us look good. I said, so it sounds like they're complaining, they're not asking. He goes, to a degree. I go, well, here's what's happening. Take a look. The first line of support, they're not getting the answer. And that is, they're either calling you, they're leaving messages, they're emailing, that's just not working. They're going to social media as a backup plan. And then they're seeking revenge often, it's like that. And so I don't think I don't think using social media is bad. I think we need to monitor those channels, because people are legitimately asking for help. And by the way, once it gets to the point of social media, if they're not direct messaging you, as my friend Jay Bear says, it's a spectator sport. You get to watch how a company is handling, the punch and the jabs that the customer is throwing at.
Shep, you were saying a moment ago how you use the census, and every year you sit there and you deep dive and go through research with your team. What metrics do you believe that people should be measuring, and what tools when it comes to that experience? Because, a lot of people go, oh, yes, we're providing this great service. Well, how do you know that? Is it just because Aunt Mabel has said, oh, it's been really good? Or are you using proper metrics and then understanding what that data means?
Yeah, I'm going to go a little wider on this than just a particular metric, but let's hit the metrics first. You want to know if you're doing a good job. Scores like your CSAT or NPS scores are going to tell you, yeah, overall, you're doing a good job. I would recommend you. I am happy with your product. If I'm calling you with a problem, am I happy with the resolution? I believe surveys are really important. By the way, I have also a metric, and I don't know if I think I may have come up with this, and I tried to find it other place. I go, how did I think about this? I call it time to happiness,
Mm.
and and there's two ways to measure it. It's from the time I have the problem
Mm.
to the time I get it resolved. But that's not realistic because, for example, Monday I had a problem with a company, and just today I wrote them an email. So does my time to happiness, should it include the 4 days that's festered inside of me? No,
Mm.
but the company needs to recognize that this might have happened a while back, and it may not be like I picked up the phone or reached out to them via email the moment it happened. But
Yes.
from the moment I try to get a resolution to the time I have a resolution, that's the time to happiness. And
Mm.
we want to shrink that as tight and as small as we can possibly do.
Mm.
I think it's important if you're in a contact center to look at, first call resolution.
Mm.
If you're using a metric like average handle time, I think it's important to know what that is. But if you're using that to grade your people, bad metric, because the
Mm.
goal then is let me get this person off the phone as quickly
Yes.
as possible.
Yeah.
Where the flip side of that is like Jim Bush, who's no longer with American Express, he finally retired. He was the czar of customer experience and
Mm.
service. He ran worldwide their customer support at American Express. And he said, I don't care how long you stay on the phone. Don't waste time,
Yes.
but stay on the phone as long as it takes for that member or customer,
Mm.
vendor, whoever, to be happy. Because I
Yes.
want them to give us a high NPS scores. And your the survey results afterward are going to indicate some of your salary, the
Mm.
bonuses you get, all the way up to his level, where his front line, if they weren't doing it right, he wasn't going to make as much money that year in his salary.
Yes.
That's how important it was to him. So
Mm.
I think we need to look at the basic overall um, general metrics. But I also encourage people to ask the right questions. So
Mm.
I'll give you an example.
Yes.
I won't tell you the name of the airline, but their initials are AA.
Mm-hmm.
Or is it American Airlines or Anonymous Airlines? No, it's American. So they have a great question. At the end of interacting with them on the phone, they say, please stay on the line for a short 2-question survey. And
Yes.
really, it's 3 questions, but the third one's an optional one. And the
Mm.
first question is, on a scale of, it used to be, they used to only ask one question. I'll tell you what that is in a moment. On a scale of 1 to 5, where 1 is unlikely, 5 is very likely, what's the likelihood that you would recommend American Airlines
Mm.
based on this most recent interaction or
Mm.
based on whatever? It's more general. The
Yes.
next question is about the agent.
Mm.
And it used to be yes or no, 1 for yes, 2 for no. Would you be happy working with this agent again? Now it
Mm.
says on a scale of 1 to 3, 1 is no, 3, would you be happy working with the agent again? And
Mm.
that's it. So it's nice because and I think this is so important. You may not get that problem resolved, but it's not because the agent wasn't empathetic and cared. They just couldn't get it resolved. But that means they shouldn't get in trouble
Right.
because of the policies of a company or the unreasonableness of a customer.
Mm.
Okay. Even though they did what they did and they made the customer smile and they made the customer feel good about the person, they
Mm.
shouldn't be dinged because there were other problems. So
Yes.
that's the second one. And the third question is, say, if you have time and you'd like to leave general comment, push the button and leave a recorded message.
Yes.
That's
Yes.
pretty good. So you get, a really good understanding as to
Mm.
what that customer's thinking.
Yeah. And it takes it back to that individual to be responsible and accountable for what they're doing, but also that impact of the brand once again. Shep, I've loved having this conversation with you today. And I know that you're about to fly off to Dubai and weave your beautiful magic across another continent there in the customer, guest, and experience as well. Before we leave, is there any strategy or tip that you'd like to share with my listeners about how do they create that most memorable moment that will last with the members, guests, customers for a lifetime?
Yeah. Well, again, I want to make sure that it's embedded in your culture because
Mm.
if it is, then you're going to be, as an employee, empowered to be able to make this happen.
Yes.
I talked a little bit about loyalty and to recognize loyalty isn't about a lifetime. It's about the next time, every time. So whenever you're in an interaction with a customer or a guest or whatever you want to call them, um, even if it's going well, say, am I doing this so well that no matter what, that customer is going to come back the next time they need
Yes.
what it is we sell? Or am I handling this problem well enough to make the customer do so. So that I think is really important, is to understand that loyalty question. And finally, we talked about it, manage the moment. Teach
Yes.
everybody that they need to manage the moment and recognize that awesome responsibility that they're in, that at any given time, especially if you're on the front line, you are representing your company, the whole brand, all the employees. Remember when I said the people here, my daughter said the people here are so friendly. It was the person. And I think it's so important that we realize the power we have to make our brand look amazing.
Yeah, look, it's been wonderful to share this short period of time with you, Shep, and with all your worldly experience. We're putting all the links in the show notes to how they can connect with you. But where can they purchase your books? Is that through Amazon or off your
just
website?
go to Amazon. If you want a bunch of them, call us, because we can give you volume discounts through the publisher or what we might have. But yeah, they're all on Amazon. And the last one, I'll Be Back, is kind of a fun one, because I didn't think about Arnold Schwarzenegger when I came up with the title, but when I put it on paper, I said, wait a minute, I got it. So I have a bunch of Arnies, I call them, throughout the book, just little Schwarzeneggerisms or whatever, Schwarzeneggerisms or whatever. and it really wasn't about that, but how can you not, think about those words? So.
Well, that's right. That's right. Look, thank you so much once again, Shep. It's been wonderful to spend this period of time with you. And I know my listeners are thoroughly going to enjoy listening to this many times and getting these
thank you.
lifetime tips and strategies on how they can create those amazing customer service and experiences. Thank you so much, Shep.
Oh, thank you very much for having me.
Thank you so much for joining me on this week's podcast. I do hope there was some moments of aha, insights, tips, and some action steps for you to take in your business or organization. I love being in this industry. So the more that you can get the word out about this podcast, because it really is an honor and a privilege to have so many amazing guests on the podcast, that we need to get the word out there. So please share. A review would be wonderful. And if you'd like to reach out and learn more about what I do and my signature program for the leadership development middle management movement, please have a look at the website, www.michellepascoe.com. Take care, everyone. Bye.